The starting point, obviously, we put the coaching panel together, but one of the first things we did was sat down over 3 or 4 days and watched 3 full games, Yeah, for all the coaches to get together and sit and watch, the way they played, what their habits were, and that was probably the starting point to give us a really good feel as a coaching group about where they were as a playing group. I met with the leadership group, which is documented as well, prior to taking the job. So I was probably aware that, they were pretty low on confidence, as you would imagine, when they're playing in a team that's getting beaten every week. So, that was, the balance. We need to be really positive. But to be perfectly frank, they've trained really hard anyway, so I really haven't had to get on their tails too much and be too negative about what they're doing. They learn, they listen quickly, but it's certainly, we were aware when we came into the footy club, and I was aware that, it's a really, a group that's really down on confidence, that's frustrated and needed, some real direction and needed some real positive reinforcement about where they were heading. Well, one of the things we've talked a lot to the player group about is we have no baggage. Our coaches, apart from Jade, who's been there, through the period, but all the other coaches have come in fresh. So we're just trying to reinforce to the players, look, whilst we've talked a little bit about last year, we've always said to the player group, look, you're all equal as far as we're concerned, because we don't have that baggage coming into the footy club. We think we know where we want to go. We brought some new players in, which I think has really, really helped. They've come in thinking, well, I've got no baggage. I've come from Adelaide, or I've come from the Bulldogs or Giants, or whoever it was. So I think that's been the most important thing for the players, for us to continually reinforce. Well, what happened last year's happened, but it has no bearing on what we do going forward. I hope Melbourne supporters over the first 3 or 4 games can see a game style. They can see what we're trying to do, and it's the same week in, week out. And I think that's what I really want to deliver to the Melbourne football supporters, that they've got a brand. I think, if you look at the good teams, and obviously their brands are a lot stronger and they do it for a lot longer. But if you look at Hawthorn and Freo and Geelong and Sydney, and the other teams are starting to develop it as well. They have a brand. You know what you're going to go and see if you go and watch those teams. The bottom teams probably can't do it for longer, but at least what we want to try and achieve, that, after round 5 or 6, that the Melbourne supporters going away going, look, I can see where this team's going now, and that's probably the biggest thing I want to give to the Melbourne supporters. As you reflect on your career, I've sort of been at clubs that have struggled a lot, and hopefully helped to rebuild them, as we did at Sydney along with Barras. So, look, I do understand, and maybe that makes it, that bond between the players a bit more immediate, because I do understand where they have been and what they have gone through, having done it myself as a player on 2 occasions. So, look, I understand where the players' mindset at, and I understand what my role is as a footy coach to try and regain the trust on behalf of the footy club.
Who keeps going towards the 50, sends it long, Fitzpatrick, and in front, Jack Watts' mark.
Look, he's a really smart player, and I've really been impressed with Jack. He's been battered around the ears a lot over the past few years. Probably the 2, hardest done by. Well, the hardest done by is the right term, but Trengove and Watts. They've had enormous responsibility, enormous pressure in a team that's really struggling. Just what Jack's done at the moment with his training, it gives me great confidence he can play. He's a terrific ball user. We need to get the ball in his hand. I think what we haven't seen with Jack, because he's playing both ends of the ground, you don't tend to get taken off, his speed. He's got genuine speed. I've seen it. I didn't see it, I must admit. One thing I didn't see as an opposition coach or an analyst for Fox Footy last year was his speed, but he has got speed, and we're seeing it now training, and we're encouraging that. So I'm looking forward to Jack playing. He's a terrific young fella, and I'd love him to be successful.
Back to Trengove, might go for goal, puts it up long and strong.
Nice.
Sometimes coaches can focus too heavily on the negative. I think one of the positives of the coaching group we've got at the moment was we never really focused too much on the negative, what players couldn't do at Sydney. We always focus on what they could do. And there's some great role models for Trengove. And Ryan O'Keefe's probably the best one that I can think of. Brett Kirk's another one. He wasn't quick either, but he was a superstar. Dan Hannanbury's really developing as a player. He's not quick. If you look at the Swans midfield, they're hard, they're tough, but there's not an enormous amount of speed there. It comes on the periphery with Jeddah, Gary Rowan. Goodsy's obviously been really quick as well. If you look at Hawthorn, they added it with Brad Hill and Isaac Smith, but they haven't got a super quick midfield. Freo haven't got a super quick midfield, but it's Ballantyne and it's Sonny Walters and guys like that. I think Jack's just got to realise, if he works extremely hard and he's got a good tank, he runs really well, get to the right spots, he can be a significantly good player in AFL. I'd rather have 15 or 16 really good games rather than getting him in for round one and you struggle and you end up having a bad season. So, look, it's just reconditioning his body, which is not unusual for guys that have been out of the football for so long, because they tend to get over one injury, then they go bull at a gate, and then all of a sudden a little bit of a sore quad or a hammy or a calf or whatever it might be. So it's a real management process for him to try and sort of integrate him back to the tough demands of AFL football.